All right, guys, if you're struggling making beats like the pros, this video is for you. We're going to make a beat in FL Studio, and I'm going to give you tips on how to make beats like the pros. Very simple techniques. Firstly is sound selection. Instead of using the default FL keys or the Flex Piano, try other plugins like Labs, for example. They have a lot of free instruments you could use. This is by Spitfire. I'm going to use the Autograph Piano here to create a sound. Okay, so now let's start mapping out some chords. So firstly, let's write in a certain key. Now, if you want to make beats like the pros, there's certain keys that generate certain emotions. I'm going to teach you all this in our Music Theory Magic course. It isn't out yet, but if you go to busyworksbeats.com/music theory, you could hop on the email list and I'll let you know when it's out. But in this course, I show you how to create emotion through certain keys, certain modes, certain chord types, certain intervals. It goes really deep. Okay, but if you want to add emotion quickly, I'm going to show you some techniques real quick. So firstly, let's just write in the key of F major, for example. Every major key has what's called a relative minor key. So if you want to switch from happy to sadness, try flipping whatever major key you're in into the relative minor. So in order to do that, this is a pro tip. So let's say you're writing in F major, for example. You can count down 3 notes from F, 1, 2, 3, and that's your relative minor scale. If you don't know what scales are, click here on the stamp tool and then go to minor natural. That's called a minor scale. So that would be D all the way up to D. Okay. That is called a scale or a series of notes, in my opinion, that sound good. And then the major scale, let's click here. Let's go to our scales. Let's go to major or Ionian. Now starting at F, this is going to give us what's called the major scale. So these are the notes you can use. Now in the new FL Studio, you have snap to scale up here. You can right click. You can right click the root note, which is F in this case, and then right click where it says major. And then all you can choose from, are the notes within this scale. Now I forgot to turn one feature on, which is snap to scale. So now FL will only let me use the notes in that specific scale. There's a reason why I don't always use that, but I don't want to bore you to tears as to why. Okay, the main reason is because a lot of music theory goes outside of the scale. But that's how you can calculate your relative minor from your major scale. So let's build out a chord progression. Most people want to hop straight into melody without understanding where melody comes from. Melody comes from harmony. Even if I go really deep, I'm going to go really deep with you guys because you're here on this video and I appreciate you. Smash the like button if you want to go even deeper into these concepts. So first thing you need to understand is that harmony is the foundation of melody. Without harmony, you really don't have contrast or relative distance. This is called a sine wave. Now, what I'm going to do is add harmonics to the sine wave. I'm only playing one note. Okay, now I'm hearing 2 notes, but I'm playing 1 note. Okay, now I'm hearing the octave. That's 2 notes, but I'm playing 1 note on my keyboard. These are all different notes. What happens if I combine them all? I'm actually playing multiple notes as I'm playing 1 note. So depending on the shape of your instrument and the wavetable it has, it can generate multiple notes when you play 1 note. So technically harmony is built into the specific note itself. Okay, so once you get deeper and deeper into harmony, it will all make sense. Let's build out a quick chord progression here. Let's do F major ninth and let's do D minor ninth, one of my favorite chords. Now, luckily, we could just copy and paste it. If you want to give it a Pharrell type vibe, you could switch this minor to a major. So what you do is take a 3rd and 7th and just hit shift up to transpose it up 1. And that's how you get that Pharrell type sound. So if you ever want to switch up the vibe without doing a lot to your chord, you could either move the notes up or down 1 for a darker vibe. Okay, so you can go up or down on the 3rd and the 7th. Okay, so let's go down this time. See how it creates that tension, and then we want to come back to the beginning. So a lot of the energy in your song comes from the musicality. And think about chords and harmony like the canvas for your melody. So what we'll do is we'll get a little advanced here. And in the major scale, what we have is called a dominant chord. So you might not be able to see with my head here in the way. I can't even see myself. So this is the 1st or the tonic, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th. So that's at C. What we'll do is we'll add a chord in here called a C9 chord or C dominant ninth. Okay. And let's do what's called a 2-5-1 chord progression. You don't need to memorize this. I'm just giving you this so that you have it. So if we start in the key of F major, we're going to get a G minor chord. So let's add a minor ninth on G. That's our 2. And then we go 5 and then back to F major over here. So let's hear it at its default voicing, it's called. That was kind of dope how it just went. Duh. So I kind of like that. That was an accident, but I liked it. So let's pull this over. Actually, never mind. Okay, so right now in its plain state, it sounds kind of just bland. So what we could do is either do what's called a tritone substitution, pulling this down 6 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And what it will do is lead into these chords using a half step motion. So these half steps are really important because here is what creates this unique vibe. Now from here, we can alter this chord. Okay, so we can move the 5th, we can move the 9th up or down. So again, similar to how we converted the minor chord to a major, we can do the same thing here for different vibes. You can pull it down. Here's a flat 5, flat 9. It kind of blends into the next chord because there's so many notes in common. Okay, so you can see with chords, now we have a canvas to start writing melody. I think people try to jump into melody right away and they have no idea what they're doing because there's no backbone to the melody. Okay, it's kind of like eating meat without the bone. I don't know if that makes sense, but you know, the meat needs the bone in order to have like the texture to it. Another thing is people overlook the bass notes. Okay, and you feel free to experiment with half steps. Right here, we need to match this D sharp. Going to pull it back to the chord type we had before, but try to experiment with those half steps. It's going to give you a more unique sound. Okay, so now let's humanize this. Now, luckily in FL Studio 21, you now have scripts. So if you go to Tools, you can look for the scripts in their form. This is called the Humanized script. Let's click on the Humanize and let's just hit Accept. You could copy the settings if you want. Okay, but the main thing is time offset and velocity offset. Now in FL Studio, if any notes overlap, they mute. So I'm going to highlight these notes here, hit Alt L, and then make sure only with selection is on so that they don't overlap anymore. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is change the key. So this, again, as you see how deep we go with just the musical notes, this is how deep you have to go for a pro level sound. It's not just this run in the mill, copy and paste type thing. So another pro sound before we get into like the key changing is simply revoicing the chord. So what we could do is pull notes down an octave or pull them up an octave to create what's called a different chord voicing. So chord voicing is what separates genre. Now what I'm trying to do here is keep this top note all the same. I'll even do it over here. I'll pull these notes down so that that top note stays around E and F. See, now we have a more full church type sound or jazz type sound. Okay, so that's how we start sounding pro. Now, the last thing we could do with the music theory, at least, is shift the key. So let's shift this down. 1. And now we're in like a Rick Ross type of chord key. Now instead of the suspended, let's pull this up to a major. It just sounds more happy to me. And now you're in the Rick Ross realm of chords. And this is a free plugin, by the way. It's called Labs by Spitfire Audio. Now let's start adding top line melody. So I'm separating, here's the last fundamental thing. And you can learn more in our Music Theory Magic course where I show you how to create emotion from scratch. The main thing is that we have 3 critical bands. We have a low frequency, we have the mid frequency, which is housing our canvas. Think about this like the actual ground. Okay, you have the water source that's underneath, you have the foundation of the house, and then you have the top line melody, which is the house. Let's start building a house in the upper frequency. So we have low, mid, high. So some people may ask, where do you start? Usually you can start with the top note of your chord. So, and then you want something repetitive like dun, dun, dun. And just repeat that. Okay, so it's very important to repeat your melody so that the listener can latch onto it. And then we can repeat that same shape. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And the rule of thirds is very important with melody. I'm checking the cam to make sure it's recording all our stuff because one time it recorded and it froze and I was so petrified. So record that shape because the listener can latch onto the rule of 3. Dun. And then we could just hold. Okay, this is called contrast. Fast, fast, slow. Also, you could use your typing keyboard to add little stuff in here. So you could right click here, select the key or the key over to the left, the scale to the right, to write over top of this. So we're in what, a major key. So I would right click and I would select major. And now my keyboard, I forget what root note we're at because I moved all the chords around. Let's say we're in E major. You would right click on E and make sure major is selected. And now you can add notes on top. So I'm just going to record over top little. I hit the wrong note, but it's all good. See how this works because it's just repetitive. Now what you can do is change up the note, but it still has the same shape. So that's how you come up with melody. Think about your sections in threes. You have the bass, the chords, and then the top line melody. Okay, so now let's get into some effects. So we have to ask, what is this piano doing and what effect do we need from it? Luckily, it already sounds amazing by itself, but to add a little more emotion to this, we could add more reverb. This plugin specifically, we're just gonna use a default stock reverb. We're gonna reset it to the wet levels at 100%, click on our piano and left click to send this to the reverb. So now it's a duplicate that we're sending to the reverb. We're gonna make the reverb wide and have a long decay, it's called. for that emotional sound. And also you could add some pitch modulation. Now you want the low frequencies in your reverb, so I'm not going to cut all the lows. But this is what adds that emotion. The last thing you could try is the tuning of the actual piano. Now this plugin has a tuning knob, but if they don't, go to your cog icon and go to your pitch range, change it to 1 and mess with this going up or down. That will change your tuning. So I'm going to use the plugin itself. Now this only seems to go, before I say it can't do what okay, so you have to hit shift to pull it down in cents as opposed to semitones, which means we're not going from key to key here. So now we're going to get a different vibe. Okay, so here's an expression knob and then dynamics right here. I don't know what this does. Tightness and reverb. So there's a built-in reverb that I didn't even know existed. That's cool. Okay, so there's and then you can hit shift down or shift up to figure out which key hits the hardest. So if you want a part 2, smash the like button and leave a comment below. This is just the melody and chord section. So if you want me to turn this into a full beat, I need you to like this video and comment below to let me know. If you want free courses, just go to premium.busyworksbeats.com and sign up today. Peace.